Your first hire should be somebody so sophisticated that you're afraid he's going to take over your business. One of the reasons businesses fail within the first 3 years of starting is something that most people don't actually take into account when they're starting a business. Now, a lot of people start a business and they think that, oh, I'm going to run the business. And what happens is very early on, they understand that they need the money to live. And what happens is that they start stifling the growth of the business by starting to pull the money out. Like I had it, for instance, a person asked me last week, he wanted to know if he should spend a certain amount of money on a certain employee. And it was not a cheap employee, it was a very expensive employee. And I told him 100%. So he looks at me, but I'm not gonna be making money on the company because literally my entire profit is gonna go to hiring this employee. I said, you have to understand business. I'm gonna explain to you business a little bit differently than people do because I find that this thing's really not discussed often. And I find that this is one of the reasons, and if not the biggest reason why a business failed within the first 3 years. The reason that happens is that the best salesman that you have for your product or for whatever you're selling usually is you. Now, what happens is when you become the person operating the business, you cannot sell your business because you stop operating the business, you stop working in it. What you really need to do is take yourself and pull yourself out of that business as best as you possibly can. To do that requires you to bring someone in who's sophisticated enough that you trust them to run the business. If you cannot do that, then you're stuck doing both parts. You're going to be running the business and trying to sell the business. That does not work. And the reason why it does not work is because there's nobody growing the business. Now, certain businesses, yes, you can hire somebody, make cold calls and try to get businesses, another business in. But if you're going to sit there and be running that business and at the same time trying to do the sales, it's never going to work. Your first hire should be somebody so sophisticated that you're afraid he's going to take over your business. Now, may even pay to give them a small piece of the business sometimes. Why? Because they understand the value that they bring into the table. That would help you grow the business. I will tell you this advice that I'm giving took me 7 years to learn. For my first 7 to 10 years, I did not have a business. I had what I would call a one-man show. Might have been a large one-man show. As the one-man show grew, you have 5 employees, 6 employees. It was still a one-man show because at the end of the day, all decisions come to you. Everything comes to your desk. There is no way to grow it as a business. To grow a business, you have to make it a business. You have to bring in somebody who can make decisions other than you so you can go out and do sales. You can go out and do elements of it to grow the business itself. You need to work on your business, not in your business. I know it's an old testament to do that. So when you're bringing your first hiree and there's someone who can't run it, chances are, and you're siphoning the money from the business to live off of it, which happens quite often, and it makes sense because that's your livelihood is your business, is what you're getting money from. Chances are it will fail, and it's very hard to do. I think that a lot of people bring in investors for this reason is because they realize they need to live off of it, and the investors take advantage of that, and they'll say, look, you know what? I'll invest in this business. I see it's going to succeed, but I'm going to make sure they hire the right people to help it build it, and let him, because he has to live off his business, I'm going to be okay with making money off of it. And that's one of the massive reasons why businesses fail, is because you end up stifling the growth of the business, which is basically a death sentence for businesses because you need cash to grow. You need cash to be able to hire people. You need cash to be able to do advertisement. You need cash to be able to do all these components that help your business grow. And I think that if you can understand this component and pay attention to it, and I'm not saying it has to be 100% you hire someone 100% to do it. I mean, there's one time I heard from somebody who called something called a duplicate. As your company grows, you have to basically build a cloning machine in your basement and build another self of yourself who can run around exactly like you to help you grow the business. Obviously, it's a joke. There is no cloning machines yet. Well, maybe one day we'll get there. But in the meantime, you have to get a duplicate, someone who can actually run the business the way you want to run it and well enough to run it that way so you can go out there and do the sales, help grow the business, work on the business, not in the business. With that, you can grow a business properly because with that, business flourishes and flourishes as well. As you have capital, you can keep reinfusing capital, you can hire better, grow better, bring in better people, and expand exponentially. With that, please subscribe.